the 10th of October 1900, Volume 4. These writings manifest in clear notes how Jesus loves souls. The soul can only go out of the body either by force of pain or by force of love. While writing, I was thinking to myself, who knows how much nonsense in these writings? They deserve to be thrown into the fire. If obedience conceded it to me, I would do it, because I feel something like a hitch in my soul, especially if they reach the sight of some people. At certain points, they show as if I loved and I did something for God, while I do nothing and do not love him, and I am the coldest soul that can be found in the world. So here is how they would consider me different from what I am, and this is a pain for me. But since it is obedience that wants me to write, and this is one of the greatest sacrifices for me, I commend myself completely to her with the sure hope that she will make my excuses and will justify my cause before God and before men. But as I am saying this, blessed Jesus has moved in my interior and is reproaching me. He wants me to deny what I have said, or to stop writing if I do not do it. He is telling me that by saying this, I moved away from the truth, while the most essential thing for a soul is never to go out of the circle of truth. What is this? You do not love me? With what courage are you saying it? Don't you want to suffer for me? And I, all blushing, yes, Lord. And he, well then, how can you think of going out of the truth? Having said this, he withdrew in my interior without letting himself be heard any more, and I was left as if I had received a heavy blow. How many devices Lady Obedience comes up with! If it wasn't for her, I would not find myself in these vicissitudes with my beloved Jesus. How much patience it takes with this blessed obedience. Now I resume what I was going to say, since the Lord distracted me a little bit from what I started. So, on coming, blessed Jesus answered my thought, telling me, surely these writings deserve to be burned up, but do you know in what fire? In the fire of my love, because there is not one page that does not manifest in clear notes how I love souls, both in the things which regard you and in those which regard the world. And in these writings of yours, my love finds an outpouring for my concerned and loving languors. After this, he transported me outside of myself, and finding myself alone without body, I said, my beloved and only good, what a chastisement it is for me, having to return so many times into my body, because certainly now I do not have one. It is my soul alone that is together with you. But then, I don't know how, I find myself imprisoned in my miserable body, as though inside a dark prison, and there I lose that freedom which is given to me when I go out. Is this not a chastisement for me, the hardest that can be given? And Jesus, my daughter, what you say is not a chastisement, nor does this happen to you because of your fault. Rather, you must know that for two reasons alone can the soul go out of the body: by force of pain, which happens at natural death, or by force of the reciprocal love between the soul and me. In fact, when this love is so strong that neither could the soul last, nor could I endure for too long without enjoying her, I keep drawing her to myself, and then I put her in her natural state again, and the soul, drawn more than by an electric wire, comes and goes as I please. And here is how what you think is a chastisement is finest love. And I, Lord, if my love were enough and strong, I believe I would have the strength to remain before you and would not be subject to returning into my body. But since it is very weak, I am subject to these circumstances. And he, on the contrary, I tell you that this is greater love, extracted from the love of sacrifice, that for love of me and for love of your brothers, you deprive yourself and return to the miseries of life. After this, blessed Jesus carried me to a city in which the sins committed were so many that something like a fog was coming out, most dense and stinking, rising toward heaven. And another thick fog was coming down from heaven, with so many chastisements condensed within it as to seem to be enough to exterminate this city. So I said, Lord, where are you? What places are these? And he, this is Rome, where the evils committed are so many, not only by secular, but also by religious, that they deserve this fog to finish blinding them, deserving their own extermination. In one instant, I saw the disaster that was happening, and it seemed that the Vatican would receive part of the shakings. Not even priests were being spared. Therefore, all consternated, I said, My Lord, spare your beloved city. So many ministers of yours, the Pope. Oh, how gladly I offer you myself to suffer their torments, as long as you spare them. And Jesus, moved, told me, Come with me, and I will show you to what extent the human malice reaches. He transported me inside a palace, and in a secret room there were 5 or 6 deputies, saying among themselves, Only then will we surrender, when we have destroyed all Christians. And it seemed that they wanted to force the king to write in his own hand the decree of death against Christians and the promise of taking possession of their goods, saying that as long as he would permit this to them, it did not matter if they would not do it for now, for they would do it at the right time and circumstance. After this, he transported me somewhere else and showed me how one of those who were said to be leaders was going to die. And this one seemed so united with the devil that not even at that point would he detach himself from him. All of his strength he took from the demons, who courted him like a faithful friend of theirs. On seeing me, the demons were shaken, and some wanted to beat me, some wanted to do one thing to me, some another. However, paying no attention to their brothers, because the salvation of that soul cost me more, I tried hard and I arrived near that man. Oh God, what a frightening sight! More than the demons themselves. In what a heart-rending state he lay. He aroused more than pity. He was not at all moved by our presence. On the contrary, he seemed to make fun of it. Jesus immediately pulled me away from that place, and I began to plead before him for the salvation of that soul. End of the reading.
The 10th of October 1905, Volume 6. The sign that the soul is perfectly clasped and united with Jesus is that she is united with all neighbours. While I was very afflicted because of the struggles that blessed Jesus makes me suffer in waiting for him, this morning, making himself seen for just a little, he told me, My daughter, I feel sorry for your sorrow and for seeing you as though immersed in bitter affliction because of my privation. I feel such pain because of your affliction, especially since it is because of me, that I feel it as if it were my own, and it is so great that if all the afflictions of others were united together, they would not give me as much pain as yours alone, for it is only because of me. Therefore show me your cheerful face, and make me see that you are content. Then he clasped me tightly with him and added, The sign that the soul is perfectly clasped and united with me is that she is united with all neighbours. Just as no clashing or disordered notes must exist with those who are visible on earth, so can no clashing note of disunion exist with the invisible God. End of the reading.
The 10th of October 1906, Volume 7. Jesus concurs in all the human actions. This morning, blessed Jesus made himself seen within a torrent of light, and creatures were inundated with this light in such a way that all the human actions received the attitude of operating from this light. While I was seeing this, blessed Jesus told me, "My daughter, I am concurring continuously in every slightest human action, be it even one thought, one breath, one movement. But creatures, not thinking about this attitude of mine toward them, not only do they not do all of their works for me, from whom they receive the life of their very operating, but they attribute what they do to themselves. Oh, if only they thought about this continuous attitude of mine toward them, they would not usurp what is mine to the detriment of my glory and of their goods. While they should be doing everything for me and give it to me, everything which is done for me can enter into me, and I keep it deposited within myself to give it all to them in the next life. But everything which is not done for me cannot enter into me, because those are not works worthy of me. On the contrary, I feel nausea for them and I reject them, even though there was my attitude." End of the reading.
The 10th of October 1911, Volume 10. Jesus draws her to do his will. I feel I am dying with grief, and I keep repeating my refrain so very often. Poor brothers of mine, poor brothers of mine. Jesus has increased my grief by letting me see the tragedy of war, how much blood it seemed was being shed and will be shed. Jesus seemed inexorable and said, "I cannot take any more. I want to finish with it. And you will do my will, won't you?" "Certainly, as you wish. But can I ever forget that these are your children who have come out of your very hands?" And Jesus, "But these children make me suffer very much, and they not only want to kill their own father, but they want to make themselves their own murderers. If you knew how much they make me suffer, you would conform to me." And as he was saying this, he seemed to bind my hands, and he clasped me to himself, and I felt so transformed in his will as to lose the strength to do violence to him. Then he added, "I like it this way, all in my will." On seeing my inability and also the tragedy, I burst into crying, and I said, "My Jesus, what shall they do? There are no means to save them. Save at least their souls. Who will be able to resist? At least take me first." And Jesus, "You see, if you continue crying, I go away, and I leave you alone. You too want to afflict me. I will save all those who are disposed, therefore do not cry. I will give you their souls. Be content. Should I perhaps no longer take you to heaven, that you afflict yourself so much? Do you know that I won't take you?" And since I continued to cry, Jesus seemed to withdraw, and I had to shout loudly, saying to him, "Jesus, don't leave me, for I am not crying any more." End of the reading.
The 10th of October 1925, Volume 18. Exchange of wills between the Celestial Father and the Most Holy Virgin and Louisa. The Most Holy Virgin repeats for the soul who lives in the divine will that which she did for her Son. As I was in my usual state, my poor mind found itself within an extremely high atmosphere. I seemed to see the divinity, and upon one knee of the Celestial Father, the Queen Mamma, dead, as if she had no life. Surprised, I thought to myself, my Mamma is dead, but what a happy death, to die on the knees of our Creator. But looking more closely, I saw her will as though detached from her body, held in the hands of the Divine Father. Amazed, I looked, and I could not give myself a reason for what I was seeing. But a voice coming from the divine throne said, "This is the elect among all the elect. She is the all-beautiful. She is the only creature who gave us her will as gift and left it dead upon our knees in our hands. And we, in exchange, gave her the gift of our will. Greater gift we could not give her, because by acquiring this supreme will, she had the power to make the Word descend upon earth and to have the redemption of mankind be formed. A human will would have no power nor attraction over us, but a divine will given by ourselves to this incomparable creature won us over, conquered us, enraptured us, and unable to resist, we surrendered to her petitions to make the Word descend upon earth. Now we are waiting for you to come to die upon our other knee, giving us your will. And we, in seeing it dead in our hands, as if it no longer existed for you, will give you the gift of our will, and through you, that is, through this will of ours given to you, our fiat will return to live upon earth. These two wills, dead upon our knees, will be the ransom for many rebellious wills, and we will keep them as a precious pledge, which will repay us for all the evils of the other creatures, because with our will, they will be able to satisfy us." The voice could no longer be heard, and I found myself on the other paternal knee, in the act of breathing my last and dying. But at that moment, I found myself inside myself, but I am unable to say what I felt within me. Only I prayed from the heart that my will might never again enter into me, but only the divine might have life in me. It alone is the bearer of all goods and the repeater of Jesus within souls. And echoing the fiat of creation, it embraces everything and everyone as though in one breath, and requites God for the work of creation, redemption, and sanctification. The divine will operating in us can do anything. It is the true Queen who reigns and rules over everything. Then afterwards I saw my celestial Mama with baby Jesus in her arms, as she kissed him and placed him to her breast to give him her most pure milk. And I said to her, "Hi, Mama, and what about me? Don't you give anything to me? Oh, please, allow me at least to place my I love you between your mouth and that of Jesus while you kiss, so that my little I love you may run within everything you do." And she to me, "My daughter, please do place your little I love you, not only in the mouth, but in all the acts that pass between me and my son. You must know that everything I did toward my son, I intended to do toward those souls who were to live in the divine will, because being in it, they would be disposed to receive all the acts I did towards Jesus, and I would find sufficient space in which to place them. So if I kissed my son, I kissed them, because I found them together with him in his supreme will. They were the first to be as though lined up within him, and my maternal love pushed me to let them partake in everything I did to my son. Great graces were needed for those who were to live in this holy will. And I placed all my goods, my graces, my sorrows at their disposal as their help, as defense, as strength, as support, and as light. And I felt happy and honored with the greatest honors to have as my children the children of the will of the celestial Father, which I too possessed. And therefore I looked at them also as births from me. Even more, it can be said of them what is said about my Son, that the first generations found salvation in the merits of the future Redeemer. In the same way, these souls, these future daughters, by virtue of the divine will operating in them, are the ones who incessantly implore salvation and graces for the future generations. They are with Jesus, and Jesus is in them, and they repeat together with Jesus that which Jesus contains. Therefore, if you want me to repeat for you what I did for my Son, let me always find you in his will, and I will be generous with my favours toward you. End of the reading.
To Jesus I surrender, humbly at his feet I bow. Worldly pleasures all forsaken, take me, Jesus, take me now. I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed.
The 10th of October 1927, Volume 23. How the divine will is multiple in its acts, though it is one. How it remains conceived in one who lives in it. How the earth is not exile for one who lives in the divine will, but it is exile for one who does not do the will of God. My poor mind continues to follow the acts of Jesus, done for love of us, and going back to his conception, I offered all my acts, done in his divine volition, together with all my being, for the honour of his conception. In the meantime a light came out of me that went to place itself in the womb of the Immaculate Queen, in the act in which she was conceived. And my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, my divine will is multiple in its acts, but it disperses none of them. The unity it possesses and its incessant act maintain the unity in its acts as if they were one alone, while they are innumerable, and it preserves in its acts the act of doing it incessantly, always, always, without ever ceasing doing it, to preserve it always new, fresh, beautiful, and ready to give it to whomever might want it. But while it gives it, it does not detach from my will, because my will is light, and light has the virtue of giving itself, of diffusing, of expanding. One can take of it as much as one wants, but it does not separate. It is indivisible by the virtue and the nature that the light possesses. See, the sun also possesses this virtue. Suppose you had your room closed with shutters. There is no light in it. But if you open the doors, the light fills your room. Has it perhaps detached from the sun? No, but it has extended and expanded without detaching a single drop from its source. However, even though the light did not separate, you have possessed the good of the light as if it were your own. My divine will is more than sun. It gives itself to all, but it disperses not one comma of its acts. Now my fiat keeps my conception always in act, and you have seen how the light of its acts done in you extended even into the womb of the celestial sovereign lady, to have your highest good Jesus conceived upon it. It is the unity of its acts that, centralizing them all at one point, forms its portents and my very life, and so I remain conceived in the acts of my divine volition, in those of my divine Mama, and in your acts done in it. Even more, I tell you that I was conceived continuously in all the acts of those who will possess the kingdom of my will, because one who possesses it receives all the fullness of the goods of my life. In fact, with only their acts done in it, they concur in my conception and in the carrying out of my whole life. Therefore, it is right that they receive all the goods it contains. On the other hand, one who does not possess my will takes just the crumbs of the goods I brought upon earth with so much love. And this is why one can see creatures emaciated in good, light-hearted, inconstant, all eyes and all heart for passing things. Because since the source of the light of my eternal will is missing in them, they do not nourish themselves with my life. What is the wonder then, if they bear paleness on their faces, if they feel themselves dying to true good? And if they do anything at all, everything is strain and without light, and they grow so deformed as to arouse pity. After this I felt oppressed, and I felt all the weight of my long and hard exile. And I lamented to my adorable Jesus, because on top of the hard martyrdom of his privations, he adds my separation from my celestial fatherland. And I said to him, how can you not have compassion for me? How can this be? You leave me alone without you, pray only to your lovable will. How can you leave me on this earth of exile for so long? But while I was pouring out my sorrow, Jesus, my life, my all, moved in my interior and told me, my daughter, the earth is exile for one who does not do my will and does not live in it. But for one who lives in it, it cannot be called exile, but one step of distance, such that when one least expects it, once that step is made, she'll find herself in the celestial fatherland, not like one who comes from the exile, who knows nothing about it, but like one who already knew that it belonged to her, and who knew the beauty, the sumptuousness, the happiness of the eternal city. My will could not tolerate keeping one who lives in it in the condition of an exiled one. In order to do this, it should change its nature, and the regime that exists between one who lives in it in heaven and one who lives in it on earth, which it cannot do, nor does it want to. Is it perhaps called exile when one goes out of his home to move just one step away from it? Certainly not. Or can it be called exile if one goes to a town within his own homeland? My daughter, exile means circumference of space without being able to go out, stripping of goods, hard labour with no way of getting out of it. My divine will does not know how to do these things. And you can see, you can touch with your own hand, how your soul has no circumference of place or space, but brings herself everywhere, into the sun, into the heavens, and a few times you've even made your little escapes up there into the celestial regions. And how many times have you not immersed yourself into the very endless light of your Creator? Where are you not free to go? Into the sea, within the air, everywhere. Even more, my will itself delights in it. It pushes you. It gives you the flight to go around everywhere. It would feel unhappy to see one who lives in it without freedom and as though hampered. Instead of stripping, my divine fiat fills the soul up to the brim with its goods. It gives her dominion over herself. It converts passions into virtues, weaknesses into divine strength. It gives innumerable joys and happinesses. It gives by grace what it is by nature, firmness, perennial unshakability. The exile is for one who is tyrannized by passions, without dominion over himself, without being able to move around within his God, and if he thinks of some good, it is mixed with and surrounded by darkness. So the virtues of the poor exiled one are strained, inconstant. He is a slave to his own miseries, and this renders him unhappy. All the opposite for one who lives in my divine will. Nor would I have tolerated keeping you alive for so long, knowing that you were in exile. Your Jesus loves you too much. How could he have borne keeping you exiled? And if I tolerate, it is because I know that as little daughter of my will keeps you not in the conditions of exile, but in its own properties, in its light, free and dominating, with the only purpose of forming its kingdom within yourself and of impetrating it for the human family. And you should be happy about this, knowing that all the desires, the yearnings, the sighs of your Jesus are for the kingdom of my will upon earth. My complete glory I expect from the Fiat Voluntas Tua on earth as it is in heaven. End of the reading.
The 10th of October 1928, volume 25. 40 years and more of exile. Virtue and strength of a prolonged sacrifice. Gathering of the materials to then order them. Happiness of Jesus in blessing his little prisoner daughter. Kisses in the divine will. Decision from priests to prepare the writings for printing. Surprising graces that Jesus will give to priests. My life is carried out before my Jesus in the sacrament, and oh, how many thoughts crowd my mind. I was thinking to myself, after 40 years and months that I had not seen the tabernacle, that I had not been given to be before his adorable sacramental presence, 40 years not only of prison but of exile, finally, and after so long an exile, I have come back as though to my fatherland, though a prisoner, but no longer exiled, near my Jesus in the sacrament. And not once a day, as I used to do before Jesus made me a prisoner, but always, always. My poor heart, if I have it all in my chest, feels consumed at so much love of Jesus. But while I was thinking of this and other things, my highest good, Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, do you think that my keeping you imprisoned for 40 years and more has been by chance, without a great design of mine? No, no. The number 40 has always been significant and preparatory to great works. For 40 years, the Jews walked in the desert without being able to reach the promised land, their fatherland. But after 40 years of sacrifices, they had the good of taking possession of it. But how many miracles, how many graces, to the point of nourishing them with the celestial manna during that time. A prolonged sacrifice has the virtue and strength to obtain great things from God. I myself, during my life down here, wanted to remain in the desert for 40 days, away from all, even from my mama, to then go out in public to announce the gospel, which was to form the life of my church, that is, the kingdom of redemption. For 40 days I wanted to remain as risen, to confirm my resurrection, and to place the seal upon all the goods of redemption. So I waited for you, my daughter. In order to manifest the kingdom of my divine will, I wanted 40 years of sacrifices. But how many graces have I not given you? How many manifestations? I can say that in this great length of time, I placed in you all the capital of the kingdom of my will, and everything that is necessary in order to make creatures comprehend it. So your long imprisonment has been the continual weapon, always in the act of fighting with your very Creator, to have you manifest my kingdom. Now you must know that everything I have manifested to your soul, the graces I have given you, the many truths you have written on my divine will, your pains, and everything you have done has been nothing but a gathering of the materials in order to build. And now it is necessary to order them and to get everything settled. And just as I did not leave you alone in gathering the necessary things that must serve my kingdom, but I have been always with you, so will I not leave you alone in putting them in order and in showing the great building that I have been preparing together with you for many years. Therefore, our sacrifice and work is not finished. We must go forward until the work is accomplished. Then, as I am near my Jesus in the sacrament, every morning there is benediction with the Most Holy One, and while I was praying my sweet Jesus to bless me, moving in my interior, he told me, "My daughter, I bless you with my whole heart. Even more, I bless my very will in you. I bless your thoughts, breaths, and heartbeats, that you may think always about my will, may breathe it continuously, and my will alone may be your heartbeat. And for love of you, I bless all human wills, that they may dispose themselves to receive the life of my eternal volition. Dearest daughter of mine, if you knew how sweet it is, how happy I feel in blessing the little daughter of my will. My heart rejoices in blessing she who possesses the origin, the life of our fiat, that will bring about the beginning, the origin of the kingdom of my divine will. And while I bless you, I pour in you the beneficial dew of the light of my divine volition, that making you all shining will make you appear more beautiful to my sacramental gazers. And I will feel happier in this cell, gazing at my little prisoner daughter, invested and bound by the sweet chains of my will. And every time I bless you, I will make the life of my divine volition grow in you. How beautiful is the company of one who does my divine will. My will brings into the depth of the soul the echo of everything I do in this holy host, and I do not feel alone in my acts. I feel that she is praying together with me, and as our supplications, our sighs unite together, we ask for one same thing, that the divine will be known and that its kingdom come soon. So as my life is carried out near my prisoner Jesus, every time the door of the chapel is opened, which happens often, I send 3 kisses or 5 to my Jesus in the sacrament, or a short little visit, and he, moving in my interior, tells me, "My daughter, how pleasing to me are your kisses. I feel I'm being kissed by you with the kisses of my very volition. I feel my very divine kisses being impressed on my lips, on my face, on my hands and heart. Everything is divine in the soul in whom my divine will reigns, and I feel in your acts my love that refreshes me, the freshness, the gentleness of my very divine will that embraces me, kisses me, and loves me. Oh, how pleasing to me is my divine will operating in the creature. I feel that by locating me in her, it gives me back and unfolds before me all the beauty and sanctity of my very acts. This is why I so much yearn that my will be known, to be able to find in creatures all of my acts divine and worthy of me. Now I move on to say that my sweet Jesus seemed to be waiting for me here in this house, near his tabernacle of love, to give start to priests coming to a decision to prepare the writings for publication. And while they were consulting with one another on how to do it, they were reading the 9 excesses of Jesus that he had in the Incarnation that are narrated in the first volume of my writings. Now, while they were reading, Jesus in my interior pricked up his ears to listen, And it seemed to me that Jesus in the tabernacle would do the same. At each word he would hear, his heart beat more strongly, and at each excess of his love, he gave a start even stronger, as if the strength of his love would make him repeat all those excesses that he had in the incarnation. And as though unable to contain his flames, he told me, "My daughter, everything I have told you, both about my incarnation and about my divine will, and on other things, has been nothing but outpourings of my contained love. But after pouring itself out with you, my love continued to remain repressed because it wanted to raise its flames higher in order to invest all hearts and make known what I have done and want to do for creatures. But since everything I have told you lies in hiddenness, I feel a nightmare over my heart that compresses me and prevents my flames from rising and making their way. This is why, as I heard them read and take the decision to occupy themselves with the publication, I felt the nightmare being removed from me and the weight that compresses the flames of my heart being lifted. And so it beat more strongly and it throbbed, and it made you hear the repetition of all those excesses of love. More so, since what I do once, I repeat always. My constrained love is a pain for me of the greatest that renders me taciturn and sad, because since my first flames have no life, I cannot release the others that devour me and consume me. And therefore, to those priests who want to occupy themselves with removing this nightmare from me by making known my many secrets, by publishing them, I will give so much surprising grace, strength in order to do it, and light in order to know themselves first, what they will make known to others. I will be in their midst and will guide everything." Now, it seems to me that every time the reverend priests occupy themselves with reviewing the writings in order to prepare them, my sweet Jesus comes to attention to see what they do and how they do it. I do nothing but admire the goodness, the love of my beloved Jesus, who, while coming to attention in my heart, echoes in the tabernacle, and from within it, inside that cell, does what he does inside my heart. I remain all confused in seeing this, and I thank him with all my heart. End of the reading.
The 10th of October 1938, Volume 36. The Creation as the First Field of Action of God. Fields of action? Those who live in his will. How God cannot refuse anything to one who lives in it. I am always in the sea of the Supreme Fiat, and its love is such that it cannot contain it, so it wants to show to its creature new surprises of this love, how much it loved her and still does. If it finds a loving creature, it makes arise new love to let her touch with her own hand its unstoppable, always new and growing love. Then my always adorable Jesus, repeating his short little visit all goodness, told me, "My little daughter of my divine will, you must know that our first field of action was the creation. This was a labour that we kept in our divine womb since eternity. We loved man in every created thing that we were to deliver to daylight. It was only for him, because we loved him so much, that we had decreed to create many things, to form for him the light of the day, the blue vault that was never to fade away, a flowered earth as pavement, and then the greatest thing, the concentration of our love in each created thing that had to serve him as our lap, to carry him in our arms, to delight him and give him continuous life. Do you know the reason for all these preparations, to the extent of making us go outside of ourselves, as if into a field of action, to work for the love of who had to let our will reign? For such a great work we wanted our reward, our divine scope, which man and all created things had to keep as life and rule, feeding it with our will. This field of action still lasts. Our love still runs at incredible speed because we are not subject to change. We are immutable, and what we do once, we do always. Still, even with such an extended field of action, so much work, so much love palpitating in every created thing and in every fibre of man, our scope, our will reigning and dominating in the heart of man, has not yet been fulfilled. Could we ever form a field so extended and still maintain it at work without obtaining the purpose? This could never be. The fact that the creation is still enduring is the certain sign that the kingdom of my will have its life and full triumph in the midst of creatures. We do not know how to do useless things, while rather we first establish with highest wisdom the good, utility, and glory that we have to receive, and then we act. Now, I want to tell you of another surprise. As the creatures enter our will to let it reign, we put ourselves again in this field of action. We renew our work, and only for her do we centralize our new love in each created thing. Then, in the emphasis of our love, we say to her, "See how much we love you. Only for you do we develop our field of action. Only for you do we repeat all our works. Be all ears and you will hear something. Our new love notes to tell you how we love you, how you are covered and hidden in our love. Oh, the happiness, the joys that you give us, to the extent that we can repeat our field of action for the one who lives in our will and who does not want to know anything other than our will. Now the whole creation, as well as ourselves, finding in her our will, recognize her as our daughter. Since our will gives her the right over all, the whole creation remains centralized within her, and she within us, so that she becomes inseparable from all created things. Our field of action finds here its reward, the return for our work. This one creature, living in our will, works together with us. She wants to do what we do and love us with equal love. Since it is one will that animates us, there can be no dissimilarity or disparity. We no longer feel isolated inside the field of creation. We have our company. This is our triumph, our victory, and the greatest good we can ever give to the creatures. Furthermore, although the creation surrounds her on the outside, we develop our field of action in the interior of her soul, creating in her the brightest suns, the most beautiful stars, winds that blow continuous loves, seas of grace, divine and balsamic air. And she receives all, freeing us in our field of action, our true creation, that was never opposed to anything we wanted to do, and in which all our works found their place. So we can place all our most beautiful works within the soul who lives in our will, and our will prepares for us the space in which to place them. Therefore our field of action never ends in those who live in our fiat. Be attentive then to receive what we want to make of you. After this he added with a love that I cannot express, "My daughter, the interest that most concerns us and our most assiduous attention is on the soul who lives in our will. We are all eyes over her. It seems that we neither know how nor can we do anything if we don't extend our operating and creating virtue over her. Our love leads us to watch her to see what she wants to do. If she wants to love our creative virtue, we create our love in the depth of her soul. If she wants to know us, we create our knowledge. If she wants to be saint, our creative virtue creates sanctity. In sum, our creative virtue is ready to create any good she wants, so that she can feel in herself the nature and the life of that good. We neither can nor do we want to refuse anything to one who lives in our will. It would be as though denying something to our own will, denying it to ourselves. It would be too hard not using our creative virtue for ourselves. See then the high, noble, and sublime point at which one who is in our will lives. Therefore be attentive. Do not care about anything except living in it, and you will feel our creative and operating virtue. End of the reading. There are no more readings today. Have a blessed day.